I don't have my microphone today because apparently it was on when I was charging it, so it didn't actually charge. It was being used, but I just shared the live, so we are good to go here. If you don't know who I am, my name is Seth Heller. I have been a martial artist for over 20 years and teaching martial arts and self-defense to kids and adults for over 10 years. And last summer, I moved from New Jersey down to Orlando, Florida to pursue my dream and mission of starting my own martial arts program and expanding the program to something that can impact people around the world the same way that I was impacted through martial arts growing up. This live series is my way of documenting the journey of building my business and building my program and everything that happens along the way. So that being said, we're going to jump right into this. First things first, we're going to talk about the vendor market that I did on Saturday at a local learning experience. So the learning experience is a chain of preschools, and there is one right down the street from where I'm living right now. And I had the opportunity to have a booth at their vendor market this past weekend. And I had gone in there a couple of weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and I had asked how many kids I should expect, basically. And they said, well, the Touch a Truck event we had a couple weeks ago, we had 100 people or 100 kids, or I forget exactly what they said. But so they were like, expect, probably between 40 to 100 people. And I was like, okay, so I'll prepare for, and I assumed they meant kids. I forget if they said kids or people in general, but I assumed kids, so that's what I was preparing for. So first off, I was on my own for this one. So I've done 2 of these types of events and booths before at 2 different YMCAs locally, and I had Janelle with me both times. And if you guys checked out the video that I posted earlier this week, or yesterday, the video I posted yesterday, you guys can hear more about the vendor market specifically and see some clips from that. But this one I was going to be doing by myself, and I knew it was going to be smaller than the YMCA events that I've done so far. But still doing it by myself and doing everything that I wanted to do was going to be a little bit of a challenge. So I was preparing myself for that as best as I could. So I had an obstacle course that I had set up just with 4 little obstacles that the younger kids could do pretty easily, and it wouldn't be too much of a challenge for them. A little bit of a challenge, but not like, not something they couldn't complete. I had the prize wheel that I've put up a couple times. There are 4 slots on the wheel where they could spin and win a ninja toy. The other slots are filled up with exercises that they'd have to do if they landed on one, and I would do those with them. So we did that, and then I had some flyers and other stuff out at my table for people to take, and I got to talk to a few people as well. So on the table, in terms of what I was promoting, I had 3 things. I had the flyer for the kids programs that I'm starting up at the Y the end of this month, so the 4 and 5-year-old and the 6 to 8-year-old programs that we're launching on the 27th at the Y. I had the self-defense course that I'm running next Thursday, so next week at the Y, for adults. I had that, some flyers for that I was promoting. And then I also had a flyer for the Be Your Own Bodyguard program. We'll touch on that a little bit later on in the live. But I had a flyer for that out. They could scan the QR code and check out more info about that one. So there were those 3 things. I had, my business cards out there. People could take that and check out my website, which I have updated pretty recently, a few times actually. You can check that out if you want. Link is in the description. But so in terms of the turnout, I told you that they were anticipating between 40 and 100 people. I probably saw max 20 families, probably closer to like 12 to 15, which to me was a little bit disappointing. I was expecting more and I was prepared for more. But that being said, any opportunity to connect with people, get in front of the community, and just get my face and my brand out there is going to be worthwhile. So I had a good time connecting with some of the families and some of the kids. There were a few, drew a handful of people that were interested, took flyers, took business cards. We talked a little bit about the programming and what they can expect. There was actually there was a martial arts school that had a booth there as well. that is very, very local, like within a quarter of a mile, pretty much, of the school itself. And I always find it funny how martial arts schools approach these things, because back in the 90s, the 2000s, whatever, it was, you have people doing forms and breaking boards and doing, tricks and all this cool stuff. And yeah, that stuff is still kind of cool, but I feel like everyone, or a lot of people nowadays, understand that there's a lot more to martial arts than just looking cool. Like that, traditional martial arts like karate and taekwondo and stuff like that, they are much less popular than they used to be, as opposed to jiu-jitsu and MMA and combat sports. So it just feels weird to me. They showed up in in full gis. They were in full gi. They had a re-breakable board, which I always find weird, the re-breakable board things that you can just put them back together. And it was just goofy to me, honestly. It was goofy. And maybe that's just me being a hater and because they are, a competitor. But I had an obstacle course and a wheel where they could win prizes, and do fun stuff. And I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a hater there, but it seemed goofy to me. So that was I'm gonna run into that more often than not, most likely, other programs like that, because there was one of the YMCA ones that I did last April. There was supposed to be another martial arts school there, but they didn't end up showing up. And not to mention, we're gonna touch on the prep school session that just ended yesterday for me, but they normally have another martial arts school come in to do stuff for the summer camp, and that's actually why I wasn't able to do it last year. And they reached out to me and they're like, "You're doing a great job here. We usually go with them, but would you want to do it instead?" So I feel like what I'm doing is proving for itself that it's better than these traditional martial arts schools and programs that don't really do a whole lot, in all honesty. But I digress. Turnout wasn't what I expected, but I still had a good handful of conversations, gave out some flyers, gave out some business cards, generated some interest. So, I didn't collect any information or anything like that. Maybe that was a little bit of a blunder on my part, but I really just wanted to get out in front of people and see what happened. So that's where that was. I got some content from it, of course. I posted a video yesterday recapping the vendor market, so you can go check that out, see some of the obstacle course and the setup and all that kind of stuff that I did. But moving on, I do want to talk about the prep school session. So I've been working with Windermere Prep. It's on my website, and it is a very large prep school in the area. And this is the second 8-week session in their community school that I've run. We just finished up the session yesterday, week 8. And the two sessions were a lot different, but there was a lot that was similar. And I want to kind of compare both of the sessions because I have some things that I want to talk about on them and some things that I want to adjust moving forward. So I just want to put that out there and kind of how I'm looking at it. So the first session that I ran, end of October through the beginning of December, that one I had 21 kids in the program, and we capped it at 20, but there was one extra that really wanted to get in, so we let them in. So I had 21 kids in total, and more often than not, I would say 19 or 20, or 18 to 20. I think there were only 1 or 2 weeks out of the 7 that I saw everyone, that I had all 21. But that session was fun. It was a lot of kids in a small room, and I was the first week or two, I was still trying to manage my expectations and figure out how I wanted things to run and how it was going to work in the room. And because I had so many kids, given the equipment that I do have, there was a lot of stuff I wasn't able to do. And I'll touch on that more as we get into this past session, or the most recent session. But it was still fun. It ran well. I probably was a little bit too strict with the kids, to be honest, because there was a lot of time where we would just be sitting, and I'd be waiting for them to pull themselves together to get quiet and that kind of stuff. which there is a balance there. Like they're learning discipline. You have to get them on board. You have to get them on board with what you're doing and following the directions in order to help them learn and build those discipline muscles. But, it's not like I should be penalizing the entire room if it's 2 or 3 kids that are kind of messing it up for everyone. So that was something that I intended on working on moving into this next session. So in this session that we just finished up, we capped it at 15. It filled up at first, and I think one kid dropped because I only had 14 on the roster. So we had 14 kids for the 8 sessions, and most of them I had 13 or 14 kids. There was one week where we only had 8. One of the grades was on like a field trip. But most weeks I had 13 or 14, so almost the full group. And this session, I do think it went better. However, I think I was a little bit too lenient with the group. I got to do more things because there were less kids. I had the appropriate gear that I needed to do more stuff. So I was able to use the air shields that I have for kicking drills. We were able to play different games because I didn't have 20 kids, sitting around while 1 kid or 2 kids got a turn. Now it was only, 14 kids while 1 kid, 2 kids had their turns. So I could do games that weren't, constantly up and moving. There was a little bit of sitting, obstacle courses, stuff like that, waiting their turn that could happen in these games. So that was a plus 2. I did also try to do more partner drills. Last session, I was like, there's a lot of them. I don't know if they're going to get it, and it could be kind of chaotic. And this session, I was kind of like, if it doesn't go well, whatever. I'm going to learn. It's still going to be useful for them because they're going to be learning how to interact with other people and work as a team. So I was just going to try it, challenge myself to try these different drills. And some of them went well, some of them did not. But I do think I was a little bit too lenient early on in the session because as we got to these last 2 or 3 weeks, there was a lot of talking over each other, talking over me, being disrespectful. And I think I didn't set the precedent early enough what were the expectations of the class. And that was I think I overcompensated for the first session in the winter because I think I was a little bit too strict then, and I wanted to rein it back a little bit. But the last couple of weeks, I did get a little bit more strict, and I started to see some progress, especially yesterday, ironically, the last session. I saw some progress of these guys following the directions, helping out, and more so just like switching gears quicker or more quickly. So going from talking a bunch and being disrespectful to focused and on point more quickly. It didn't take as long this week as it did like last week or 2 weeks ago to flip that switch. So I think moving forward, one of the biggest things that I'm going to be doing is trying to strike that balance between being strict with them and helping them build up that discipline and being lenient to give them some leeway because they are, they're 4, they're 5, they're 6. The older kids are going to have higher expectations, but I don't want to penalize the entire room because, there's a couple of 4-year-olds or a couple of particularly rambunctious kids that are having trouble sitting still. So that's a balance that I'm working to strike, and it's also tough on my own. I mean, I had a high school student that was volunteering and helping, but they're obviously not a professional. He had never worked with kids before. So there's only so much that they can do. They're more there as like, a partner if I have an odd number or helping out with little things here and there. So doing this on my own as the only professional in the room is a little bit of a challenge and something that I've not had to deal with that frequently in my career. I've done it a couple times where I would manage a group of 15, 20, 25 kids by myself, but it was very few and far between the years that I was working at Budo. So that's one of my biggest goals for the next session, which will be starting up the first week of April, is going to be when I'm starting the next session. I'll have 7 weeks, 7 classes to work with that group of 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. So I want to set the precedent from the start. These are the expectations. This is how it's going to work. But also make sure that I'm giving a little leeway at first and then starting to tighten things up along the way. And I want to change up how I'm doing some of the drills. Some of the partner drills, they just took a while. They took longer than I wanted them to, and I think that's why some of them got a little bit out of hand. But they were learning kicks. They were able to do some of the skills that I wanted them to do, which was cool. I just think I need to pick and choose how I approach those drills, make sure they're not taking as long, and maybe do a little bit more of partner games versus drills to get them used to working together so that we can do some more complex drills moving forward. Those are the two biggest things that I'd say I would want to continue to work on for the next session. And then we jump into summer camp the first week of June, which I will be there working with pretty much a different group every week, or I'll have a couple groups for like a half an hour, 2 days a week. And then, I might see the same group a couple times throughout the summer, but that'll be a little bit different. That'll be like, here's the one class that I'm going to run this week with these, 4 different groups or whatever that I get. And we'll make slight adjustments for age groups. So, that's that. That's the prep school session. Lastly, what I want to talk about is the Be Your Own Bodyguard program, the course that I'm running in, it'll be 3 weeks from tomorrow at Resonance Yoga Studio, which is just down the street from where I live. Well, so far, we have 0 registrations, a big goose egg. And it's frustrating, right? Because I had the one in December that I was supposed to run. And that didn't work out. We didn't have any registrations. We ended up canceling it about a week out because no one signed up. Bad time of year, whatever the case is. And that was frustrating. It was discouraging, but I was like, okay, well, we'll chalk it up to the time of year. It is what it is. So I scheduled this one expecting to have some people from the yoga studio signing up and people that I know personally that said they were interested in the last one sign up for this one, and maybe a couple people from from the region that Blower Tactical would be able to connect with, and it just hasn't materialized so far. And I've done a lot more work this time than I did for the last one, and still haven't gotten any traction, which is frustrating. Now, something that I'm noticing, and this is anecdotal, not enough data to really come to a solid conclusion, but given my attempted BYOB in December, there was one a few weeks ago that a spear coach that I know was running, and he didn't end up getting any registrations either. And there aren't really many BYOB courses being run anymore, at least not like there used to be. To my understanding, there used to be a lot more. There's only a handful on the website that are actually being hosted. So that brings me to, well, is this actually something that people want? Is this something that people are going to be willing to attend, willing to spend a full day, willing to spend money on and do? And I'm not saying that is the case, but it's a thought in my head at this point. And I want to get that out. That's the purpose of these lives, is to document the growth of the business and my journey along the way. But I'm not so sure if this is something that people are going to want, especially like as a cold initial offer. So I'm going to kind of test this theory a little bit next week because I'm running the self-defense class for adults at the Y. And I am going to mention at the end, hey, if you guys want a more in-depth, intensive training on this topic, the subject matter, I'm running this course in a few weeks, not too far from here, and could potentially get some registrations from that. I'll touch on the things that I've done for promo so far and what my plans are moving forward in a minute. But to finish this idea out, this thought out, I think it may make more sense to do shorter classes like the one I'm doing next week, like a 90-minute, intro to self-defense, to personal safety, intro to spear system, whatever we call it or whatever I do, at a handful of different places. I think it would be an easier ask, something like, some sort of revenue split with the facility. Maybe, it's $40 a pop, right? 90 minutes, $40 a pop. We split it 50-50, or, they get a third, 20%, or whatever it is. So that way, we get 20 people at $40 a pop. What's that? $400, $800. They get, let's say 25%, they get $200, and maybe they get some new people in the door. Or maybe it's a program that we decide to run as a continuity program, right? Once a month we go in there and run some sort of class, whether it's the basic beginner version of the class or an advanced level class, not advanced, but like adding on the things that they learned in that first class on a month-to-month basis. And then trying to connect with a bunch of local gyms, community centers, churches maybe, on that program to see if it's more digestible and valuable to them right off the bat, because it's not this full day commitment. It's not, it's not a huge financial commitment. The Be Your Own Bodyguard course is $199 for one person or $299 for two. So it's not like it's an outrageous price tag, but $40 is a lot more digestible for someone you don't know, doing something that you don't know how it's going to go. It just seems like an easier ask off the bat. And then maybe I do a couple of those and I collect some info, or at least build relationships with these different facilities. And then it's like, hey, I have this course that is kind of like what we did that one time, but it is on a much larger scale. We go much deeper into the subject matter, and it's called Be Your Own Bodyguard. It's this much, we're doing it on this day. Then maybe I set up the BYOB courses, or at that point, I've established enough of a list and a presence in the community, and I have my own facility and decide to run Be Your Own Bodyguard in my own facility whenever I want, pretty much. So that's another consideration that I have in mind. So there's a lot that's going through my head about this, but what I've done so far, the yoga studio, they've been announcing it every single class. They said they've seen some people scanning the QR code, taking flyers, and so they're announcing it as much as they can. They're not doing any social media or email promotion for it because they feel like there's a gray area. Their insurance doesn't let them do martial arts. Even though this isn't martial arts, they feel like there's a gray area there, and they're a little bit concerned about that. So they're just promoting it through word of mouth. I went around to local businesses. I mentioned that on here. I handed out some flyers, see if they would post them up. I've been posting about it on social media. Not a ton, but a couple times a week I'll post about it. That's not really getting much reach, to be honest. A lot of those posts really don't get much traction at all compared to my other ones. And then this week I also reached out and DM'd about a dozen people that I know personally down here, mostly from the gym, if they knew anyone who may be interested in a course like this one that I'm running. So I've done a handful of things to try to market and promote this. What I'm going to be doing moving forward, I'm posting more consistently about the course. So I'm posting more content, better quality content, not just like a video and then a mention of the course, but like valuable stuff, promoting the, showing like promo videos, trailers almost for the course, stuff like that. And then some content that I have from Blower Tactical HQ that they gave me, that they give everyone who's running a BYOB course. So I'm translating that to social media because they have it set up as emails. I'm also going to be posting in some local Facebook groups. So I'm actually going to make my first post today, just introducing the program, introducing myself and the program to people, and see if we can generate some traction that way. And then I'm going to continue to post the stuff that I'm posting on my own social media into those groups to continue to promote it a couple times a week at least. I'm going to reach out to a handful of influencers in the area, and this isn't necessarily to fill up this course specifically. This is more so to get the word out, more of a long-term play to align myself with their brand. There's a handful that I have a particular connection to their content. Like one, she homeschools her kids. I was homeschooled. Another one does a lot of, like, she's a fitness coach at a gym. So there's a connection there. Another one was like a pediatric registered dietitian. So working with kids and health and wellness and all that. So there's a couple connections there that I'm reaching out to because there is that specific connection. So I'm going to reference that in the message that I send to them. I'm honestly there's 4 of them that I want to reach out to specifically. I don't expect any of them to get back to me, to be honest, but I'm going to shoot my shot. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So I have messages curated, and I'm going to reach out to them today, as well as the Facebook group post that I mentioned. And then at the class next week, like I mentioned, at the Y, I'm going to be referring those people to the Be Your Own Bodyguard course for more intensive, elaborate, and detailed training. So those are some things that I'm working on for this. Like I told the yoga studio, I'll run the course with 4 people. That's probably my minimum, 4 people, to make it make sense. But I'll run the course with 4 people because that can at least give me a little bit of proof of concept, give me a little bit of social proof. If I can get them to give me a testimonial, a little video or something, I can generate some content from it, and I get experience running the course myself. So I'll run it with 4 people. The cap is 20. It will be great if we can get, at least 10 there. But I'll run it with 4 if we need to. If we don't get to that number, then we may end up having to cancel it again, which is unfortunate, and that would really cause a big pivot for me. But we'll see what kind of push we can make these next few weeks. I'll keep everyone posted here. And if you have any suggestions, feel free to put them in the comments. But that's about wrapping up everything from the last week that's been going on. Next week, I'm not sure if I'm going to end up going live. I have a friend coming into town, or a former student and their family. Another one of their family members is coming into town who is in college right now, and she's getting on spring break, so she's going to come down here and wants to hang out for the weekend, do a little bit of Disney stuff, and kind of pick Janelle's brain about potentially working for Disney. So she's coming in next weekend. We're going to hang out for a couple days, do some Disney stuff, so I might vlog a little bit of that. We'll see what happens there. So I'm not sure if I'll get an episode in on Friday. I might do it on Thursday instead. We'll see. On Tuesday, I'm going to be doing a class for a homeschool group at the YMCA. They have a group, I believe it's supposed to be like 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, something around there, and it should be like 15 kids that I'll get to work with for an hour. So I'm going to be putting that class together over the next couple of days and decide how I want to approach and run that once I have a little bit more information from them. And then UFC 326 is tomorrow. I'm very excited about that. I'm probably going to go over to the new house that we are officially ready to move in. The new roommate is already over there. She's already started living there, and we're going to be moving in the next couple of weeks. So I have a packed next couple of weeks. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that specifically next week, or in 2 weeks. We'll see. Actually, in 2 weeks, I don't know if I'll be able to do an episode. We'll find out. I might have to shift the schedule for this year, but UFC 326 is tomorrow. I'm probably going to go over to the new house and hang out because my other roommate is having a little birthday party for herself here, and I don't really want to be in a room with half a dozen women drinking tea and eating cucumber sandwiches. So I'm probably going to go over to the new house. I'm about to go pick up a desk from my office, so I'll probably just hang out in my office, watch some fights, maybe do a little bit of work, and then come back once they're over. So yeah, I'm excited for that. But, well, we're also supposed to get an announcement for the UFC White House event tomorrow during the card. So we will see what happens there. But that is all for me today. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far in, please drop me a comment and let me know that you watched. You can just type replay or ask a good question. Leave a thoughtful comment. I would appreciate it. It definitely helps. But thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you like and subscribe to stay tuned and follow along with the journey. And I will see you guys in the next one.